Hey everyone, I'm back here at the Historic Home Renovation Project, and it's been 6 months since we started the project, and I just wanted to give you an update on how the project is going, what we've done so far, what we still have left to do, and just show you around and show you the progress that we've made. So the first thing that we needed to do with this house before we could do anything else after we did the demo work was to get the floor system structurally rebuilt and secured and then lifted. So when we first bought the house, you could tell that the floors were like really uneven, and we brought in an engineer at the beginning, and he set up a laser level and walked through the house and found out that at the worst spots, the house was low 4 inches in the middle from where the house was on the outside around the perimeter. So we knew we wanted to raise that up just to make it feel better. And it turned out the house was sort of under framed. All the framing members from this house built in the 1930s were just too small. And so over 90 years, they've just sort of sagged. The piers in the floor system had deteriorated too. All the brick piers from just moisture in the ground. So the engineer specified that we rebuild many new piers out of brick on concrete footings. So we rebuilt piers and we installed 3 new girders underneath the floor system of the house, where before it only had 1 girder, and that girder was underframed and sagging.
Keep going, Rick.
That doesn't make y'all nervous to be underneath it when you're doing this?
First couple of times.
Rick's like, I don't know, I'm not so sure.
I was trying to find the biggest tape, really.
So they've only lifted one side of the house so far, but already this front door, which was always really hard to open and close, it always dragged across the bottom, and already I can open it and close it pretty easily. I mean, I'll have to adjust some of the jambs and the strike plates and all that sort of stuff, but I'm okay with that. So now the door opens and closes easily because they have lifted it. I don't know how far yet, but they're going to keep going across the whole house, so I'm excited. I can hear the walls and the roof creaking as he's lifting the floor underneath this. It was an interesting process to watch. It had to be done a little bit at a time, but because we had taken most of the plaster off of the walls, they were able to just jack it up as much as they could at a time. We weren't worried about cracking or anything like that. So you can see in the crawl space here, all of the new girders and footings that they have installed. I think it was 21 new piers and 3 girders that run the entire length of the house. And they were able to raise the floor system up a couple of inches in some of the worst places. It wasn't the total 4 inches. It's not a perfectly level, flat floor anymore. But in one of the bedrooms, especially, you can see we set up a laser level beforehand and after, and it raised it a good inch, inch and a half. So the floors definitely feel a lot more secure now. They don't bounce or feel hollow when you walk on them, and they're more level than they were. They're not perfect, but this is an old house, so I don't expect them to be perfect, but they're better. So we've also had the window restoration guys working here for about a month or so now. They've been kind of coming and just taking one window at a time and doing what they can for the windows. And sometimes they've had to take window frames or window sashes out and take them back to their shop and like completely rebuild the sash. Some of the wood was rotten or the glass was broken. This window had a tiny crack in one of the corners of the glass, so we actually just took that out and were able to reuse that glass to replace some of the smaller window panes in other windows. And so now we're just waiting to find another piece of antique wavy glass that's big enough to refit this window. So I'll show you some of the things we've been doing to these windows to improve them and to make them better. So these windows were all double pane windows or double hung windows. So the top sash used to move up and down too, as well as the bottom sash. And because they're such tall windows, we decided people aren't really going to need to reach up. They're not really going to reach up and grab those top sashes and want to move them up and down. Plus they were all painted shut. It would have taken a lot of work to make that top sash operable again. So we just decided to leave that top sash and make it officially a fixed sash. So that top part is not operable anymore. So we made these into single hung windows basically. And that saved a little bit of money to do that as well. So our guys put fixed blocks underneath the top sash. That officially closes off that window so that you can't move it up and down anymore. And then we'll paint and caulk it, but they also put trim around the top window as well. And then for the bottom sash, like I said, they've rebuilt it in places where they've needed to. They've retied and put new cords, new cotton cords on all of our weights. So these are brand new cotton cords. They're all nice and shiny. They moved the windows around so that they adjusted the windows so that they move nicely in their frames now. And they've added this weather stripping on all of the window frames. So they basically cut a dado in the side and on the bottom of the window frame here so that it can slide up and down over this weather stripping. And so when that's on, it helps to weather seal the window so that it's not so drafty anymore. So one of the other things is that you've got these metal pulls that are on each of the windows, and I actually took one off and brought it home and boiled it to get the paint off and then polished it with some polish to see how well it would shine up, and it actually looks pretty good. So at some point we'll do that to all the windows. So we wound up doing something interesting to this window frame here. This is the large window in the dining room that actually had 3 windows next to each other. And it's beautiful and lets in a lot of light. But one of the things we noticed with this house was that this entire side of the house, the wall is leaning out away from, at the top, the wall is leaning out. And so there's not really a way that we can fix that without kind of rebuilding the whole house. But in this dining room, this wall is mostly this window frame. And you could tell that the window was actually sort of starting to buckle under the weight of the house sagging. Some of the trim had come loose and was buckled out on the outside of the house. And so we were trying to figure out what we were going to do to make this look better. And we decided to actually just remove all of the window sashes, and we just looked at the whole window frame as a whole, and we disconnected the whole window frame from the outside casing and just pulled the whole unit in at the top and made that plumb or level vertically. So we brought that in so that it's plumb, and then anchored it back to the wall with blocks and stuff. So, and then we'll put the windows back in. The windows will be straight up and down. The trim around the windows will be straight up and down. It'll leave kind of a funny little gap on the outside of the trim, but we'll fill that in with trim and it'll get caulked and painted and everything, and you won't really ever notice it. And on the inside, the windows don't line up with the wall anymore right now, but it's such a little amount of wall in this room that we're just gonna fur out that little section of wall so that it looks plumb and matches up with the windows on the inside. And once the restoration guys went in to put the window sashes back, they realized that there was actually a lot of rot in the window sill itself. Yeah. So they took that out completely and they had to put in 2 new pieces of window sill. So now we have some nice shiny new sill in this window. So we've also started to do some of the new framing in the house, but one of the lessons that I learned from when I was doing demo, I tried to keep some of the walls, some of the plaster walls that looked okay, and some of the new framed like drywall walls, I tried to keep them up and in place to save money and time and stuff. But I think one of the lessons I learned with doing a house that has so much structural work that needs to be done is that you should probably just demo everything, especially when you don't know what the work of the previous person has been like. So this is was a new wall that was added years ago, and when we started looking at it, we realized that it just wasn't built straight. It didn't line up with the other wall that they were trying to line it up with. It wasn't plumb. So we basically just had to take it all apart and rebuild it. So that's what this is. And also, after they did the floor lifting, a lot of the plaster that we left behind just couldn't take the lifting. It crumbled, it fell off of the lath. So we came in and also had to take off some more plaster too. But I'm going to take you upstairs and show you the framing that we started up there. So I'm upstairs in the attic. This is going to become the primary bedroom and a new bathroom and like a loft area. This area had an addition sort of added onto it at some point without a permit before we bought it. And they did that illegally. They didn't do it well. And there was some sketchy stuff going on up here. So it took a lot of smart people and engineers standing around and scratching their heads for a while to figure out how we were going to reframe this. So there was initially a flue chimney that went up through the top here. And we went ahead and took this down because it was just kind of in the way and it was really not straight and wobbly. So when you walked up the stairs, it was in your face. It was the first thing that you saw. And it just made me feel like the house was going to collapse when I looked at it. So we took that down, and it opens up this space a lot more. But the old roof was sort of coming in beside that chimney on either side and had been cut previously by the other folks who added this dormer on. And they didn't really know how to support that framing of the old roof. And so it was just sort of up on some sketchy members with nothing really supporting it. And we just had to try and figure out how to take that down and how to add to it in a way that was safe. So we actually wound up having to bring in several of these LVL members here. So this is laminated veneer lumber. This is, they're made to be certain sizes, whatever size you need, whatever length you need. So these are actually running all the way up to the beam here. We actually added a new ridge beam at the top. These run all the way up and support the roof above it. And then from this LVL, we actually have hanging more LVLs. This is a header now that runs across and supports the ceiling up above that. And that was the tricky part. We couldn't figure out how to create a header in this situation to support the rafters and the roof, the ceiling that we needed to put in here. So we have since brought in our collar ties that will make up our ceiling. Before this was about 7 feet in here as the ceiling height, and now it's up to like 7'10", so it's going to feel a little bit more comfortable. And we also framed basically everywhere there's a rafter on the roof, we had to add sort of another rafter. We had to frame down the ceiling so that there's enough room for insulation, for the proper amount of insulation to go up here in this space. And since the ceiling and the roof were sagging before from it being an old house and from structural members being cut years ago, when we put these new 2x6s, these new rafters up in place, we made them visually flush all the way across. So we're going to have a nice flat ceiling up here in this space. But I'm glad that we are starting to do the framing, that the structural work is mostly done, so that the house is feeling a little bit more secure now. And now we just have to do the framing for like where the walls are going to go that are break up the bedroom and the bathroom, kind of the fun things like that. So outside we have had some folks come and actually take away the asbestos siding that was back here on the back porch and on the very front of the house. So the front of the house we have to bring back to its original features, which would have been the lap cedar siding, which was actually already there and in place. It just had asbestos over the top of it. So we had some folks come in and properly remove the asbestos siding and get rid of that. And they're gonna go around to the rest of the house and actually find any places where the asbestos siding is damaged or broken and take that off and repair it. But the new stuff looks like the old asbestos siding, but it's usually made of cement and fiberglass and things that are a little bit safer to work with. So we're gonna repair and replace those pieces on the 3 sides of the house and just have the siding exposed on the front and on that back porch. And then these guys were also taking off the whole bottom row of siding here, and we're gonna put in basically a skirt board, like a 2x8 skirt board here with what would have been a traditional piece of trim and some flashing and stuff on top of that. And that just gets rid of most of this bottom row of asbestos was damaged anyway, and so rather than try to repair that, we just took it all off, and we're going to put in a nice skirt board that's going to look nice here. So we're trying to get the outside worked on and finished up. The painter is going to give me a little bit of a deal if I allow him to paint during the wintertime. Which I'm fine with. He's going to use an oil-based paint, so it's a little bit less affected by the temperature. So we're going to try and focus on getting some of this outside stuff done and the new siding up on that dormer that was added in the back, so we can get some painting done, and that'll make this house look dramatically different once this is all painted up. I gave myself a year to finish this house, so that's a long period of time. I feel like it's got a little bit of cushion in it, but it has been 6 months since we started already, and we're still in the sort of demo and reframing stages. So not as far along as I would hope, but I've had another project that I've been focused on that has a shorter timeline, and so most of our efforts have been over there. I have been sending subcontractors over here as they're available, so work has been going on, but there were some things that needed to happen first, like the floor reframing, before we could really get going. But we still have 6 months left, and I'm confident that we will finish it in time, but that's when my loan is due to be repaid, so wish me luck.